Derp. Derp. I hope he got a picture in the book. Hi, Nigel. Derp. And the winner of the English Looking as Fuck Award. That's it. Oh, by the way, Nigel, great choice of photos. That's probably in the book. Guess where this thumb was? That's the question everybody wants the answer to. Right there you go.
River.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Thanks, Nigel, for reminding everyone.
Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
All right, so, here we go. Music from... Ooh, that was cold. Farage got billing above Trump. What the fuck was that? The red-faced one. That's what I actually looked back on. What the fuck is that? Looks like a horror movie. You know, there's a story going around right now that demonologists think the White House is haunted by the dead son of one of our past presidents. There's a case to be made from this picture.
From the moment in 2015 when he announced he was going to run to become US President, Donald Trump.
And from the moment he fucking lost the last election, and we're here to remind him all night long that he's no longer president, and we're telling old war stories while he tries to sell his book because he desperately needs fucking money in a house that's so much nicer than anything he's ever fucking sat in because he's a low-rent, second-generation rich kid with shit taste, Donald Trump.
Has been in world news. He's dominated world news every day for 5 years, all over the world.
Yeah, kind of like the Cold War and COVID and anthrax and John Wayne Gacy.
Donald Trump has said this. Donald Trump is alleged to have said that, and what other people said about him. Yet something very odd has...
Please tell me they dance at the end of this. Please tell me they both stand up and, like, he didn't even get a fucking table in this. At least Lindell gave him a fucking table. What is this? Is this supposed to be... Oh, hi. How are you, my love? Oh, look at that. Yummy, yummy. Mwah. This is going to be a long one. I will be along in a moment. She brought dumplings home. Oi, 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 oi. All right.
Since the beginning of this year, outside the United States, he's virtually disappeared. Has he been signed?
You're not making him very happy. Nigel, you are not... Hold on. I have to... Hold on. There's got to be something in here. I'm looking for something. Whoops, why am I...
Is it voluntary? What is going on? Well, today, we're going to find out.
Has he fucking He's fucking disappeared. No one knows what he's doing. He's like it's almost like he doesn't fucking matter anymore. Oh, yeah.
We're going to break that. And the first big foreign interview that Donald Trump has done, this is Trump Speaks to the World with me, Nigel Farage, here on GB News. Good to see you.
GB News, which is, God blimey news. God blimey news.
Well, I didn't know I was so quiet, but if you say so, that's okay with me.
Oh, the insults. Oh, they come subtle. It's very dry. The British love you. You know, tonight our guest is someone that many thought no one would ever hear from again. Someone that has been said in many circles to no longer be interesting or effective on world levels. As a matter of a laughing stock, some have called him. My special guest tonight, Donald Trump. Welcome, Donald.
I wonder, is that because of social media to a very, very large extent?
I don't know. I mean, I have not heard that, but it's possibly so. I have a lot of things to say, and sometimes I want to say them, and sometimes I don't feel it's appropriate to say them based on the position. We had a great election. We ended up, it was a rigged election, unfortunately. We got more.
Yeah, it was a great, as rigged elections go, it was great.
than any sitting president in history by far, 75 million votes.
Yeah, but also, and that was largely due to mail-in voting and the fact that we were all sitting at home and we didn't have much else to do. People it was like people were voting like it was a fucking new hobby that they were interested in. And unfortunately, Biden stomped a mud hole in you and marched it dry.
More than 12 million that we had from the previous election, which was about 63 million votes.
Yeah, and everything was going well until someone came in and stole our table. Have you seen our waiter? Why do all the Trump interviews look like restaurants cleared out around him rather than leave? Like everybody in the fucking place went, you know what? We're going to go. We'll move outside. You know what I mean? Like the Lindell interview was the same way. Like this big empty fucking room for no goddamn reason. Like, what is happening?
I think we've said a lot about a lot of things, and certainly there's a lot to talk about if you look at what's going on in Afghanistan with the
also generic things. Oh, God.
withdrawal, which was, I think, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And you look at our borders, what's happening with our borders. You look at the cost of energy. We were energy independent, and we no longer are. You look at so many different things. You and I could talk all day.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yeah, do it though. Except talk with him, not at him. But please.
What's happened to the United States.
But we've not heard you through, I guess, through Twitter. It was for you, something that you used to massive effect. Oh, Jack Dorsey is being removed as CEO of Twitter because of shareholder.
No, he stepped down because of shareholders.
Sure, but whether that means they'll improve as a channel or not. I mean, I was amazed the day that the Taliban, you mentioned Afghanistan a moment ago, the day the Taliban took over Kabul, I did put out a message that said it seemed ridiculous that their leadership was still active on Twitter, and yet you were still banned.
Well, they were wrong in what they did and would.
Yes, it's kind of fucked up when the Taliban can understand the terms of service and stay on a website and Trump can't. Can you imagine having less impulse control than the Taliban?
With the United States president, who's obviously a popular president based on everything that you see, and them and Facebook, and I think they made a big mistake. I think if they had it to do over again, they wouldn't be doing it.
Well, they can do it over again in a millisecond. Your account's still digitally archived. They could turn it on. They could flip it on like a switch, fucko. That means with every second that ticks by, that's another no. Just nope, 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 nope. If they had to do it all over again, well, they can. Any minute. Literally. They could do it right now. We could all be sitting here watching my show, and they could go, oh, Trump's back on Twitter. He's not going to be. But they could. Knock yourself out. Ask. Sue them.
We get the voice out. We have to do it. We have an obligation to do that. But
yes, yeah, get the voice out. It's an obligation. It is.
It's leaving. I guess it was probably enforced because they're down, and also there's no excitement on Twitter anymore, as I understand it.
Well, you wouldn't know because you're not there. Do you hang out? You like stand in the corner of a bar, like. All right, you can stand on the patio, Donald, but you can't come in the bar. Nobody goes in there anymore anyways. I don't even like the music they're playing. Yeah, everybody's dancing, but they're not really dancing.
Well, a lot of excitement. Not only me, conservative people are leaving and being canceled. So they're canceled, they're leaving, and in my case.
Oh, you mean like Ben Shapiro? No, he's still on. Candace Owens, no, she's still on. Larry Elder, no, he's still on. Shit. Who else has been? The dudes from The Quartering, they're still on. Devin Tracy, he's still on. He's not really a conservative, but you know what I mean. Let's see. Yeah, conservatives are getting broomed off, except all the ones that are still on there who've managed to say everything politically that you supposedly are for, but not encourage violence. Those people are still on. Just whatever.
We used to get tremendous interaction with liberals and everybody else, and now they just say it's a very boring place.
Yes, tremendous interaction. You know, when you tweet out that you're going to change the policy of the DOD so that trans people can't serve anymore, and then you get what comes from something like that is tremendous interaction with liberals.
Twitter, it's going down. The numbers are going way down.
No, they are. On the election, as you say, you got 11 million votes more than you got in 2016.
Yeah, it's totally going down. Everything's going down. But Getter's on the rise. How's Truth Social, by the way? We haven't heard much about that. Let's see. Trump's... This is, I mean, obviously, this is what's going to knock them all on their ass. This is going to be a... let's see. Trump SPAC social media company appears to miss its first product deadline. Trump's social media site quietly admits it's based on Mastodon. Based on. You mean stole the software behind? Yeah, okay. Trump's social media venture seeks $1 billion raise, sources. Seeks? Yeah? Trump Truth Social has missed its November beta app launch deadline. Why? I mean, what... You know, what's a couple of missed beta deadlines when you're trying to show a proof of concept to get $1 billion? Does anyone have $1 billion? Former President Donald Trump's new social media venture is seeking to raise up to $1 billion by selling shares to hedge funds and family offices at several times the valuation it commanded in a deal with the blank check acquisition firm in October. Two people familiar with the matter said, yeah, good luck with that. I could totally see that happening. It's going to happen. $1 billion. It's 2 weeks away. In 2 weeks, they'll have a beta version.
Because we know what happened. You know, 29th of February last year, I was with you backstage at CPAC, and I thought he's going to win 40 states. I mean, things were looking terrific. The pandemic hit.
And it was looking great. I mean, the U.S. had entered a recession already, and had the pandemic not hit, we would have gone through a recession the entirety of last year anyways, and he would have pretended it wasn't his problem and lost because he was fucking annoying.
And then you kind of got criticized from both sides. Biden said you were xenophobic because you closed the borders. You said we don't want foreign air.
Yeah, that wasn't why. He said he was xenophobic as a human being, not because of those particular actions. He was concerned that Trump's xenophobic reflexes would also inform his response to COVID, which it did. See, Nigel, you know English. You know how English works.
We don't want this virus being brought in. The other side said you didn't lock down hard enough. I mean, difficult in a pandemic to win as a president, as a leader. But the real effect, of course, was...
Yeah, especially when you're trying to complete a trade deal with the country that the disease originated in, and therefore you have to pretend it's no big deal for months.
For the first time ever in America, tens of millions of ballots
of tables went missing,
being sent out through the mail system.
Well, they use COVID, or the China virus, as I call it, to rob and rig and steal an election. And they sent out millions and millions of ballots. Nobody knows where they went in so many cases, and it was a disgrace.
Yeah, nobody knows where they went. Well, then how do you rig an election if you don't know where the ballots are going? I get what you're trying to sell here, but what the fuck? Honest to God, like, at least say the Democrats sent them out to all these people and they had this organized effort. You can't just go, they sent them out and nobody knows where they went. Yes, they were applications. We know this. It's a good point, Casbah. But the applications to get your ballot, your mail-in ballot, and then they sent them out after you'd requested them, or they sent them in, because you didn't have to in places like Colorado and other states. You didn't have to request them. You just had to, you didn't have to file it in a certain amount of time and you would get one. In California, they mailed them out, for example, but you obviously had to know where they were going, because you can't just rig an election by mailing piles of them anywhere, because what the fuck happens if you mail them to an area where there's a bunch of Trump supporters? Look at these piles of ballots. Why don't we fill them out? It's almost like that's what happened in Texas and Florida and Ohio and Tennessee and Kentucky and, oh dear God, places like that. It's almost as if you could track it to that very moment that maybe there was an enormous amount of fraud going on, and Trump was actually behind all of it, and he knew that. And the sending out of the ballots by the states was actually worse in Republican states, maybe. I don't know where you would think that was a possibility. All right.
And everybody knows it. You look at even polls now, a big percentage of our country knows it, and it's very bad for democracy. Very, very bad for
The
democracy.
problem was in so many of these states, because they'd never seen it before, kind of what they did in collecting the votes wasn't against the law, and that was part of the problem.
Well, but they didn't get it approved in many cases by legislatures, and you have to, so therefore.
No, they don't. They do not have to in these circumstances. The emergency powers of almost every state, and certainly the ones that they've been bitching about, all cover the ability to do this. And if you would like proof, let's see, do I have my shit? I've got to get my. Always have to end up getting my. I bring my iPad and then I forget my iPad, and then I don't bring my iPad and then I don't have an iPad. Many of you may recall that I had gone through one of the Georgia voting laws to show everybody that a lot of what they were trying to do had nothing to do with black voters, voters of color, and areas like that. The laws that are being passed largely are designed to quell the fears of Trump voters and get them voting again. All right, so I went through this bill and was pulling pieces out of it that kind of stuck out to me. And there was, let's see. I'll find the part. I think it's in the beginning of it. Aha. Now, why? Take this guy. Send this to here, to that. And the theory is it was illegal for them to do this. It was illegal, right? They were doing this. They didn't consult the legislature. They didn't have the right to do it in Georgia, and they just sailed ahead. Okay, if that was true, then you would just make the case that it was illegal, and you would, in the case of, by making that case, you wouldn't have to modify the law around it already because the law would already be standing. You would not be allowed to send ballots out, without applications and, modify the deadlines in an emergency situation without bringing the legislature together, having them vote on the new changes and doing it that way. Now, no state has a situation where that's a reality, especially a state where they have hurricanes or bad weather, because that would be ridiculous. So you got flooding throughout the state. It happens during an election time. The idea that you would have to, modify people's ability to vote in the state because of flooding, and you would also bring in everybody from the legislature from all over the state through the flooded areas and if they couldn't be there to vote, you wouldn't, whatever. And so, this is from the Georgia bill. This is a change, which was why it's underlined, okay? Anywhere it's underlined these are the primary changes that they've made. Notwithstanding any provisions of this chapter, Chapter 3 of Title 38 relating to emergency management, or Chapter 13 of Title 50, the Georgia Administrative Procedure Act, which is what covers the procedures of elections in Georgia, they are making this modification. The state election board may only adopt emergency rules or regulations in circumstances of imminent peril to public health, safety, or welfare. To adopt any such emergency rule or regulation in addition to any other rulemaking requirement of this chapter, the state election board shall, 1, give notice to the public of its intended action. They did that anyways. Immediately upon setting of the date and time of the meeting at which such emergency rule or regulation is to be considered, given notice by email of its intended action to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House of Representatives, chairperson of the standing committees of each house, the legislative council, and some other folks. The purpose of this is that up until this point, the governor and the lieutenant governor could make these changes under the emergency rules of Chapter 3 of Title 38 relating to the emergency management, or Chapter 13 of Title 50, the Georgia Administrative Procedure Act. They were able to do that by themselves, legally. You don't have to change a law if it was broken. You only change the law if people were following the law and you don't like the fact that they were able to do something and you want the law changed. This change in particular proves beyond a shadow of a doubt on all fronts that everything that Mike Lindell or Trump or anybody who said about the Georgia elected officials or they didn't even pass it, it was violation of the Constitution or violation of the state constitution, is complete and utter bullshit. The legislature put this bill through, the governor ended up signing it, and they added this shit because previously this was not in the law, and so the governor and the lieutenant governor could make these changes on their own. I don't know why anybody fucked with me on this stuff. Just don't. Just don't. Don't bring your shit. Don't even roll up on me with this nonsense, Nigel, or anybody else in the trollosphere. The QAnons, the maggots. Don't even, because all I have to do is roll up the changes that the Republican legislature and the Republican governor and the Republican lieutenant governor and Secretary of State, mind you, because he worked on this as well, made to the law, because under the law, all the changes they made in 2020 were completely fucking legal. And if they weren't legal, they wouldn't have to change the law. They just have to enforce the old law. Seriously. And by the way, in any of the discussions that you've heard elsewhere on the news about the Georgia law, which has some doozies in it, and they're definitely fucking with people. We covered some of it the other day, but most of it is stuff that Democrats can handle. I'm not concerned. Like, Georgia voters aren't fucking stupid. Black people aren't dumb. We can absolutely get everyone to the polls that we need to get to the polls within the rules of this situation. There's no question in my mind. And the other two things that are most concerning will never survive a legal challenge, and they're already being sued over it. Now, by the time May rolls around, the worst parts of this law will be chucked out. That's why, by the way, they put stuff in this bill that says if you throw out one part of it, the rest of it stays on almost every element of it, because they knew a bunch of it would get challenged, and they wanted to keep as much of you'd file separate claims. And they knew that some of the stuff would absolutely not stand up to constitutional muster, so they knew if it got thrown out, you'd have to rework the whole bill. So they made it segment by, like, fucking hell. Anyways, I looked through this whole goddamn thing, and where have you heard anyone bring up this part of it in rebuttal to anything on Fox News, to anything on the naysayers, even on MSNBC and CNN? Any of the bullshit they sling on Newsmax or OAN? Anybody? Anywhere else but here? Where? I beg you to tell me where anybody else. I love you guys, and I don't want you to be afraid, and I want you to only focus on your worry and your energy on stuff that needs to be fixed, and that alone, while not just being overwhelmed with anxiety and fear by this constant barrage of bullshit by people who are selling fear to you every goddamn day that make you just kind of go, well, fuck, I can't do anything about this. I don't even live in Georgia. What the fuck is going on? No one's going to do this. There are simple segments of these things, and Stacey Abrams and the Democrats are going after elements of this bill in the courts right now. Don't let anybody tell you different, that are going to get struck down between now and the spring. And this whole, they'll be able to flip the whole election because they on a say-so, which is not in the bill, but there's like greasy areas where they could try. That's all going to get chucked out. And all the stuff, there's some stuff in here that's actually good. They added early voting days because they were trying to cover their ass, trying to not look racist with the other shit. The ID rule. Yeah, in a state of 10 million people with 7.3 million voting age people, the ID issue only affects something in the order of like 53,000 voters, which, since it was decided by 12,000, seems significant, and 58% of the 156,000 people with ID issues in their applications that were thrown out, 58% are black, but 90% of them didn't vote. So most of the people who have ID issues are hillbillies in Georgia. Don't believe me? Look at the 12,000 vote margin that's going to turn into 22 or 23 and 24 in 2024. You don't think Stacey Abrams knows what the fuck is going on in Georgia? How kind of hard when they are your neighbors and they try to run you over when you go to the mailbox? Good Lord. That is a crime no matter where you live in the country. So I would... Mike Pillow didn't exist until Sparks. That's true. I did coin the phrase Mike Pillow. That's true. And I've seen it used a lot. So thank you very much for noticing.
It is against the law. Wasn't approved by state legislature.
Hi, see that? That's what I'm talking about. Fuck you. All of the states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all the states they're bitching about, even the ones that they won that they now think they want to go after, all of them have emergency provisions. All of them are making changes in the law to make those emergency provisions cover elections so that they can have more control over it. Still not going to affect the turnout of the goddamn election. They're just going to have to go and make an up or down vote and put their dick on the table when it comes to, in the guillotine of politics, whenever they want to make a change around, an emergency situation. And God willing, we're not going to have another COVID anytime soon like this that will magically land in an election year and all that kind of shit. Like, they're trying to solve a perfect storm from decades ago. He's lying, and he's too stupid.
You can't do it even through a court. You can't do it. It has to go through the legislature, and the legislature.
Bullshit. Again. Bullshit. Bullshit. All bullshit. This is the Georgia law. This is SB 202. This is the one they just passed. This is the underlined part. This is the part that God damn it. I don't know how many times he's going to repeat the same shit over and over again. Fucking hell.
Didn't approve this stuff, and the courts didn't have the courage to take it up. And so it's...
Hey, it had nothing to do with courage. There was nothing to take up. Not in Georgia, not in Pennsylvania, not in Wisconsin, not in Arizona. They all had rules like this. All of them. All the changes they're making are fixing this. The courts can't take anything up. No law was broken.
An interesting situation, but
No, it is.
We'll see how it all ends out.
I mean, a lot of Americans, as you rightly say, a lot of Americans are genuinely concerned about election integrity. And I have to tell you, from my...
Well, yeah, but I mean, largely because we all know that Trump tried to rig the election and hired a bunch of people to vote on, fake votes and create fake ballots and mail out fake ballots because he was in charge of the country. I mean, understand that he was actually in charge of a lot of shit. Biden wasn't. He was a guy in a basement, so he couldn't have any power over the elections like this. But Trump could, and he used a bunch of organizations all over the country to try and fake votes and make dead people vote and all that kind of stuff. And when he created all those fake votes, he knew, and it turned out he lost anyways. He decided to use those fake votes because they couldn't track them back to who they actually voted for, and assume that they voted for a winner. And when indeed they voted, those fake votes were all for the loser. You're welcome.
Experience back in the UK, mass postal voting, leads to the wrong results very often.
Absolutely.
Well, Lauren Boebert did get elected in Colorado, and they do all mail-in voting, so he may have a point.
Automatically, by the way,
It's a bad
they
system.
cheat.
It's a bad
automatic. I mean, they put everybody on the millions of people on the honor system. No, there's tremendous cheating with that. And
Millions of people there are not millions of honorable people in the United States. Listen to your former maggot leader. America's full of liars and scumbags, thievery. There's never been a more. It's Mos Eisley. America's the Mos Eisley of the earth.
you know, they've done studies on it. Everybody knows it. Every study comes out. You can't.
Every study from the 70s, before we had cell phones and the ability to track stuff and QR codes and UPC symbols. Remember that? Remember life before that? Remember life before bleat? Do you remember that? Remember, I don't know, many of you, maybe you don't. Do you remember a time when you went to the store and somebody went, hackata, 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 hackata? Clang, schlang. There you go, thank you. Remember that? And now you go, bleat, 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 bloop. That's when that study was done.
Through the mail, you can't do it. These mail-in ballots are a disaster. Whether it's your country, whether it's the USA, it's an open invitation to cheat.
But here's the problem. I've seen some pretty extensive private polling that suggests that up to 20% of your potential voters and supporters feel so demotivated by the message that it's been rigged, that it's not fair, that it's not just, that in Georgia, for example, in that special election, you know, which was the one that tipped the balance.
Oh, this is not good. This is not what Trump wants to hear. That the loss in Georgia was his fucking fault. And 2022 is going to be the same problem because he's going to be on this fuck the vote tour all of 2022. Every time you ask him, you can't trust elections. It's all bullshit.
Senate. There were a number that perhaps didn't go out to vote who would have done because they felt disgusted with the whole system.
Well, they felt the election was rigged, the preceding election, which was the presidential election, and then when they had a vote.
And so they didn't vote, and therefore their vote was stolen from them by someone bullshitting them into not voting? What?
A couple of months later, they really did lose their enthusiasm, and frankly, rightfully so. They had no...
That's it. There you go. That's the whole game. There you go. This is, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the whole reason why the Republican Party is trying to stiff arm Donald Trump at the same time they like give a reach around to his voters. What an asshole. And he's not going to stop. And rightly so. Listen to that fucking answer. And rightly so. It's been a goddamn year. Rightly so. By the way, you know, normally, and including when Trump was in office, the administration that comes in, you know how they say in the midterms you always lose, the party usually loses the House in the upcoming midterm. It's kind of habitual. Occasionally it doesn't happen. Most of the time it does. This time, the same thing is true of Virginia and New Jersey. Usually, the governorship flips. New Jersey, famously, Chris Christie was in office. You know, they go Democrat or Republican, opposite to the president. It's a habitual thing that Virginia and New Jersey does. This time around, Biden won, and we kept New Jersey. Hair's breadth, but we kept it. It normally flips. The tide of the voter in New Jersey is usually to hand the governor's house to the opposite party. They didn't do it this time. Now, part of it might have been because they were just sick of Trump and they're kind of old Chris Christie voters, so they know he's an asshole, and they have that kind of ego issue with them being neighbors to New York. And a lot of them know better. The New Jersey people know that Trump is full of shit in the way that the Virginians necessarily might not. But we kept New Jersey this time. The Democrats still control New Jersey in the governor's mansion, which normally flips. Now, that could be because they support Biden and they know Trump's an asshole. But part of it, and since it was a hair's breadth, it's kind of important. Part of it could be A bunch of Republican voters who just don't believe in voting anymore because of this asshole. Well, that one over there. It almost looked like I was pointing at Nigel Farage's actual asshole, which I was not, for the record. I was not.
The governor of Georgia did a terrible job, like just terrible, having to do with election integrity. And yeah, they felt an election was rigged and stolen. And I would say they didn't have the enthusiasm to go out and vote. And I understand that. Now, one other thing, Mitch McConnell did a terrible job because this guy.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I don't normally want to interfere with him when he shits on other Republicans. So I'm going to leave the show early tonight. We will pick up. There are 2 of these interviews and we just don't have time. It's 6:15 already and I've already gone over. And I start later on Thursday, so I don't want to steal everybody's evening, and I've got food waiting for me because my girlfriend brought dumplings. But in the meantime, I will see you guys at the regular time. Hang on there a second, man. Don't go. We ain't going nowhere now. He's my hero. Look at him with all that French curlicue shit. He looks like he's in it Marie Antoinette's vagina right there with all that nice curly pretty stuff on the walls and things like that. Buddy, old man, oh Henry, that's a place to hang out. I want to hang out with him. Well, can we see him tomorrow? Yes, we can see him tomorrow, Ficus. We're not, I can't keep everybody around. But come on, man. I can't leave him. He's spewing the truth bombs all over the place, and he's spewing out so many truth bombs. He's wearing a fresh diaper and he's having to slurp a lot, like it's coming out of every hole. Truth out of every hole. I think they're gonna have to burn that seat when he's done. All right, we have got to get out of here, and I will have yes, by the way, that's Ficus for those of you that haven't met him. I will bring Chip in the morning show tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. I do a morning show, Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. You can watch that. It's a longer form conversation. And yesterday, the Wednesday show, I'm particularly proud of. I know I went a little long on the topic, but it ended up being like my 90-minute TED Talk on statistical bullshit, and I think it's worth a rewatch or a pass around. I'll try and make a nicer cut version of it. And then tomorrow, the regular 3 o'clock show, and I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon. And hang on there a minute. Just tell you what, you can leave if you want to, but just leave me behind to hang out with him. I gotta take a picture of him and Nigel Farage. What kind of French froggy name is that anyway? That bullshit. Ferengi. He's a Ferengi? That's from Star Trek, isn't it? Come on. Hey, look at him. I'm never voting again. Salute. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.